Hello, welcome to another class. This was where we stopped in the last class on comparison operators, and this class I would like us to continue. And like I said, this class we're starting with arrays. Arrays are okay. I'm coming. I'll just comment all these things out so that we'll just have them, but let them not interfere with what we'll be doing in this class. So this class will be talking about arrays, and arrays, if I'm spelling this right, arrays, and arrays are ways to save multiple items in one variable. How this works is, for instance, you are a teacher in a class and you want to save the number of students. Maybe you're writing a function or writing a program that saves the number of students. You could just easily save save each of the students in a single variable and name it students. Another instance is probably you're writing a list of cars and or names of cars. You can use an array to save all the cars in one variable. Let me just give you this. Let's just do something, because maybe just talking about it may not really create the understanding I'm trying to make. So let's say, for instance, we have a class of 5 students, and we want to have the names of these students, or you want to list the names of the students. How you could go about it would be saving each student, like student 1. So let me just let student 1 equals now give him a day. Then we can go let student 2 equals Fola. Okay, make it capital letter. Fola or Folake. We'll just leave it Fola. And then let student. It's already getting cumbersome already. But student 3 equals Shadi. Then let student 4 equals, let me be politically fair, equals Aminu. And let student 5 equals Chukudi. Chukudi. Yeah, Chukudi. See, you can see how cumbersome this is. You have to write, but when you want to use an array for this, you just simply say let students equals, then use the angle brackets. Then now you can now record all these names, either using single quotes or double quotes, whichever that suits you. I prefer using single quotes anyway. You know, Ade, comma, Fola, using comma to separate each of the values or items in the array. And we have Aminu, and lastly but not the least, we have Chukudi. So as you can see, array makes everything a lot more easier. And for clarity, you could even go like this. just trying to see if I can write it in. And you can see it's even more easy to read. It's even more easy to read if we do it like this. So let me tap everything together. And these are lists, all separated by commas. This is the difference between an array. This is actually where arrays get powerful, and arrays are actually a type of JavaScript objects. We'll go into objects, but a type of JavaScript object, and they can hold from variables. They can hold. You can even add something like you can even add something like student1 to tell you that arrays can hold even variables or strings. You can say student1 and it's part of the array, if you understand what I'm saying. So arrays can hold way more, can hold functions, and it can hold a lot of things in an array. And arrays are so powerful. Like I think I've said that more than twice. And there are so many things you can actually do with an array. For instance, let's say you want to access each element in an array. You can actually access them individually. So let me just I'll just comment this one out, so that I'll just do a little bit of manipulation with this array we already have. Okay, so we have, so this block of code is not going to run. So let's go to our console and see, let's log this our array on the console and see what we'll get. So it's a console log students, and we go to our browser and refresh, and we'll see the array of 5, and you see all the items. One now brings me to something what I wanted to mention earlier. Arrays are zero base or index based. Normally you would want to say this is the first item, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, right? But if you notice, it's starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. So arrays are zero based index, or their index is zero based. So the first item is not 1, it is 0. The second is 1. The third is 2. The fourth is 3, and the fifth is the fourth one. So basically that's how arrays are indexed. And the same way, if you want to access each element in an array, we could use the angle brackets. So to get the first element, let me just do it outside of the console before I go it. So the first element, which is a day, if you want to access it, will go be students. Students. Then we use this and the first element, and that is the first and that is a day. In order to see this really in action, let's just use our console and put 0, which is the index of 0, to show you that arrays are actually 0 indexed. And when we say we're getting a day here, the same thing if we go for let's say 3 in 3 would be 1, 2, 3 shade, but because it's 0 based, it's 0 is ade, 1 is fola, 2 is shade, then 3 is supposed to be amino. You just see this. Let's refresh, and you see it's amino, because like I said, arrays are 0 based, and there's so many things you can do with this. So for instance, if we want to change the number 3 element from Aminu to Hassan, for instance, could just go. This is something we could just easily do. So we are picking the number 3 element in the array and we are changing it to Hassan. This is valid JavaScript. So when we now console our student array, we would see that Aminu, or the fourth item here, which is third because it's zero based. I'm not confused. The third item, which is Aminu, is now Hassan. So let's go and see it in our console, and we'll see Hassan has replaced Aminu. So that is just simple things. You can actually pull out elements and you can change them. We can pull out elements and do a lot of things from about the array. So like I said, since we've already introduced this method, there are other ways to actually write an array or to create an array. Like here we just created a variable let students and we immediately populated it with our array elements. But another way we could do it, we could say let, or we could use const, but I like using let, so let's just continue. In this case we say cars, let cars and equal to an empty array. So we have created an array and the array has no element inside. We can now populate our array with elements using this syntax we used earlier. So we could just do something like car 0. What we want to be the first item, we could put a Toyota. So Toyota. We could go what we want to be the second item, say car, which is 1. We'll say a Honda, or an Honda. Which one? Honda. Then car. I'll go for the second, or in this case the third is let's go for Volvo, and let's just stop here. So let's save. Basically what we have populated these our cars arrays that we created as empty with this item. And if you want to check this, you can now go to the console and see cars in the console. So here we are. Let's refresh. Oh, okay, I guess I made a mistake somewhere. Where did I make a mistake? Oh, okay. Cars, yes, and I'm writing car. Sorry, it's my bad. So it's cars, sorry, cars, not car. Sorry for that. So if we go and check our console this time, it will not give us an empty array anymore. See, we have cars, we have 3, we have Toyota, Honda and Volvo. That was a mistake from me. So we populated each of the item with these new elements. Sorry, I was supposed to put an S because it's cars and I went and wrote only car. So that was an error, but we corrected ourselves. So cars, we created an empty array here and we populated our empty array with these items and chose the index in which we want, the order in which we want them to appear. That is just that about that. And there's another way with what we call array methods. There are other methods of populating an array. We have the push method. We'll talk about that later, still in this video, but let's just proceed as we go on with arrays. So like we're proceeding now, or let's proceed now. What I want to do in this case is let's just sorry, I'll just use console. I'll just comment this out so that you know disturb us as we proceed. So there's another way to create a new array, and it's using the new keyword in JavaScript. So let's say we create a new array. We say let's bikes or bikes equal, then we use the new keyword new, sorry, we use the new keyword with new array, then we new array, not this. We use the new array, and we have created an array just by doing this. So at this point our array is empty. We could decide to use this method to push in elements into it, or better still, we could just use directly putting elements into it by saying things like what are the bikes I know Honda also is a bike. Make bikes Honda, and I know there's this bike company Suzuki, I think Suzuki, and what other bike? Why are they running from my head? Let's just leave these two, basically. So basically you could populate it like this, or we could just say bikes, then create a new array, bikes equals new array, then populate it bikes the way we did here. So this is another way of creating an array, and to prove this we could use our console, not confirm, sorry, console, and when we log on to the console and refresh here, we'll see we have Honda and Suzuki as the two bikes. So another thing that you might have noticed, if you were observant on the console, there's something called length. So you could just say dot length, and it will tell you the number of elements instead of displaying the items. When we refresh, it will tell you there are 2 elements in the array, and this is actually an array property. I don't know, I'm just jumping further. I'm supposed to take this step by step, but this is an array property, and we're going to be discussing them just right away. So that's, let me just comment this out. So so that we could just proceed with arrays, the property. So the properties, we already talked about the properties of an array, which is the length properties, and there are other properties, but we would want to dive into it right away. But I would like to say methods in an array. I think those properties with what we should talk about right now. Methods an array in JavaScript basically. So one of the methods you can easily add in we'll just be talking about the push method, which is used to add another element to an array. So for instance, if we wanted to add another bike to the bikes array, this array here, we want to add another bike, we could use something called the push method, and the push method will add another bike at the back. So this is how it works. You just go bikes, which is something we've already, then you use the dot operator, and if you have VLC Microsoft VLC, what am I saying? VS Code, Microsoft VS Code, you would see this array methods you could use. You could use the push, which is what we want to talk about right now. There's the map method, the for each, the length, and the join method. And these are methods you could use for an array, and there's so many other ones. You can concatenate, that is adding one array to another array. I would like you to experiment with these methods because we won't be touching all of them yet because we want to go step by step, but I would like just to put you through the push method, which is how to add into an array. Then you can either practice with this or you just stick with us as you continue, and would get to touch on all of these methods one after the other. So the push method, which is what we're talking about now. So we want to add let's say a new bike. You could use either double or single quotes, and you just put the name here. I'm just thinking about a name of a bike. Let's just put trails. I think that's the name. I don't know. Something like that just comes to my mind. And you see, if we check the bikes, we use our console. If we check our console, we'll see that trails has been added to the list of bikes, or the arrays of bikes that we had. Let me just refresh, and you see we have trails as part of it basically. So that is the push method for you. It will add another element to the end of it, to the end of the array. And we talked about the dot length method, the length property that we use there. There's a way you can actually still use it to add an element to an array. It's just like a trick. Let me just show you how you could just go and say bike, and then you say bikes dot length, and you can imagine what this will already show you. Bike dot length will give you the number of items in the bike, and if you console log bike dot length, let's just do that. I'll just copy it quickly. Sorry, excuse me. So console let me just comment out this thing so just so that you're able to see the length of you see we have 3 items in the bike array. That is what this is telling us. So as you can see, we're saying bike, then We're looking for the index of 3. And as of now, if you remember, I told you that arrays are 0 base, so we have 0, 1, then we just added 3, was making it 2. So there is, if we try to check for this, it doesn't exist. The third item, or the 3, bikes square bracket 3, doesn't exist. It will give us an undefined. So what we'll do, we will now come here and subtract 1 from it. When we subtract 1 from it, we will now have 2, which will be 0, 1, 2, which is trails. So if we do that, if we come check, let's just wrap this whole thing. Let's just wrap this whole thing in this place. You will see what I'm saying. What it will give us, what will come up on our console will be trails. So imagine now if we did minus that as it was before. Sorry, I did. Okay. So we are supposed to have a third item that doesn't exist. What's happening? We're supposed to have a third item that doesn't exist, which is what we have here, bikes, and it's supposed to give us a third item that doesn't exist. So imagine we're now saying the index of 3, just like saying, it's just the same thing as saying bikes, then we put 3 in this place, then we'll say equal to I'm just thinking of the name of a bike, and let's just say forest. See, so if we go and we check our bike, I don't know if you could go, if you go and check our bike, we check it on the console, you'll see that forest has been added to the list as the third one, and the same method you can use to keep adding. So we could come here and say, if we wanted to add another thing, we could say bike and use the same method, say bikes dot length and add another one and say, sorry, speedo. And if we go, we'll see that speedo has been added. Exactly. So that is what I'm trying to explain to you, that you can use the dot length property to keep adding elements to your array. So furthermore, I think we should end the class on array here and move forward next to objects, so that we'll be able to quickly cover things. Arrays and objects are actually very similar, and they are used interchangeably. You can use interchangeably in some cases, but objects actually are richer, and I would like to talk about that more in depth in another class on object, not in this one, so that this class will not take too long. So in the next class we'll be talking about objects in JavaScript. Thank you.